Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Trendwatcher of Supply Chain Media, also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, a European quarterly magazine, and a huge group on LinkedIn, over 60,000 members. And we have a bi-weekly newsletter with a lot of stuff on supply chain, the whole range. And I'm also the architect of the IT Submap Europe. I'll explain it later, because we have an interesting supply chain software vendor today in our 60-minute live webinar. We're going to talk about carbon calculation and scope 3 accounting, a very important thing. It's about sustainability, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next 60 minutes. And with me, I have an expert on this matter, Oliver Rebollo. You are a senior account executive at BigMile. Oliver, can you explain a small thing about yourself, your background, where you're coming from, and what makes you tick in this matter?
Sure, no problem. Well, I've been working in the logistics industry my whole life, mainly on the road transport, actually. And I started my own company when I was 18, sold it when I was 23. And from there, I was actually always involved with road transport companies. And since I had the luxury position of having a small family, a young family, back then I decided to take the step outside of the logistics industry as such, and then go to work in suppliers for the logistics industry. And that journey took me all the way to BigMile recently. So in May last year, I started at BigMile, and as a real diesel guy, as you may see me, it was kind of strange to be talking about CO2. But once you get to know the rules and regulations and the reasons why we are reducing the CO2 emissions in the logistics industry, it's quite interesting and really good to be part of BigMile at the moment, and trying to educate people like today also on how this legislation works, what is CO2, how does that interjunct with each other, and what can you do about it.
Yeah, talking about diesel, it's the first time in my life that diesel has a higher price than gasoline. I've never been experienced in the whole life. So we'll talk about it briefly later. Yeah. What's going on in the world. And all right, a few household remarks on my side. This webinar is recorded. It will be made available on YouTube within 48 hours. The PDF will also be made available in the next 48 hours, so don't worry. The audience is on mute, so hello everybody, you are on mute, but you can interact. So you already found the chat functionality on the right-hand side. So you can chat with each other, but if you have questions to Oliver or myself, please use the Q&A function one down below. I would like to follow the Q&A function, and if you have questions relating to what Oliver is talking about, I will ask his questions immediately. If not, we have a Q&A at the end, so you can get these answers of your questions then. If you have still some more needs or questions to us, so you can also join us after the 60-minute webinar in our virtual lounge. So Oliver and myself will be there.
Yes.
As of this moment, I will put off my camera, and Oliver will do the same. So basically, you can enlarge your presentation to have a better view on the screen. All right, BigMile. So, like I said, I'm the architect of SCM IT Submap. You see the Submap, the last year's version on the left-hand side. So it's about ERP, WMS, TMS, but also scope 3 carbon calculation solutions. So that's on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you see a similar kind of overview with Submaps, but then it's on country-based. You see all kind of sustainability software vendors, different flavors. And as you see here on the left-hand side, you see the ESG IT Submap, different kind of lines. Scope 3 calculation is on there, also BigMile and its colleagues or competitors, how you call it. And on the right-hand side, you see BigMile positioned on the SCM IT Submap Europe. Oliver, you see a lot of vendors around you, so I think, and we'll get to at the end. So there are a lot of other vendors you are connecting to, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. A lot of TMS suppliers and ERP suppliers do have a module that talks about CO2, but it's it's always better to have your specialist in that area. So a lot of TMS providers talk to us and want to integrate with us and already have integrated with us. Yeah, definitely.
We'll end up at the end, on the technical stuff with the APIs you're connected with to the other vendors. But first, talk some more about BigMile.
Yeah, please. BigMile, with this slide, I wanted to show everybody that we were actually originated from a top sector logistics project. And to who does not know the top sector logistics, the Dutch government has decided that there are 5 sectors that are really important for the Dutch economy, and they call it the top sector. And one of those important industries is logistics, and therefore it's top sector logistics. It is governed by the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Waterstaat. Can you help me, Martijn, on that one?
Water management.
Water management, all right. And in that top sector, already before 2015, people saw the importance of CO2. What first started as simply calculating in Excel has evolved into a real mature program, SaaS platform that people can use all around the world in order to calculate and allocate precisely their CO2 emissions of the logistics supply chain. So yes, we were founded and originated from the Dutch governments. At the moment, as of today, since we have been established as BigMile BV, as an incorporated company, in 2020, the Dutch government has nothing to do with us anymore, and we are a commercial company. At the moment, we serve more than 250 customers worldwide, from Australia to Mexico, but also, of course, on the European continent. And we do that with around about 20 people at the moment.
Interesting to see you mentioned here briefly the Lean and Green project that's going on in the Netherlands. Basically, it's kind of certification to carriers, transport companies, to become more sustainable, and that that's also good that there are a lot of supporters in that area in the Netherlands, but also across Europe.
Yeah, it's good that you highlight this. It's really important that the Lean and Green program is a program that people can use to receive stars, and the more stars you have, and it's not only bound by the Netherlands, by the way, it's also in Spain and in Romania, it's everywhere in Europe at the moment. And we are partner of the Lean and Green program. It means that if you want to receive or achieve, actually, that's the better word, a star, and it goes up to 4 stars, by the way. The 5th star is under construction, as they call it. But if you want to achieve the extra star, so from the 2nd star onwards, you need to use primary data on shipment level. And people are not able to do that anymore in Excel, so they use a platform like ours. And we offer this to the program for free. So every participant in the Lean and Green program in Holland and in Romania, by the way, are able to access the BigMile platform for free once they are in the Lean and Green program.
Yeah. So the carriers, they can get these stars, these Lean and Green stars, and on the cargo owners, their clients, the ugly word shippers, they are looking for green carriers. So that's what they are looking for, and that's why these stars are very important for the cargo owners selecting carriers.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. If you look at what's happening into the world, this is a slide I'm using picking up because this is the Q4 overview. What CEOs were talking about during their financial earning calls with analysts, and those CEOs are mostly CEOs from Fortune 500 companies, so the larger US companies. But I think it's very important because every quarter there's an update. What are they talking about? And basically, they have been talking about supply chain since 2020, since the start of COVID. So supply chain has been mentioned in every quarter since 2020. It's in blue, the supply chain related ones. You see also reshoring, digital twin, local for local. So there are supply chain topics mentioned by CEOs from manufacturing companies and wholesale companies and retail companies. And you see a lot of AI, and the red ones are risk related. And in green, luckily, you see also climate, sustainability, and emission.
Yeah.
If you look at this, what is your take on what CEOs are talking about in general? This is Q4 last year.
Well, we need to mention that this is from the US, of course. So a lot of US CEOs talk about these topics. The shutdown is one of the most important ones. But I am really happy to see that climate is still a huge topic.
Yeah.
No matter what we talk about, no matter what Trump does,
yeah,
climate is still a topic. So we need to take care of our planet. We need to measure our CO2. We need to act on our CO2. And this is what it says to me, that it's still of importance to everybody, no matter what happens in the world at the moment with everything going on.
Yeah, another thing, what the major word here is uncertainty. And as we see, energy prices go up and inflations go up, etc., and maybe temporarily or maybe longer, whatever. There's the main thing. There's a lot of uncertainty in the market over there. But then again, and maybe that's reflected here, things have to improve. So maybe you can explain what has been done since 1992.
Well, with this slide, I want to illustrate actually what the attention is towards CO2 over the past years, decades actually. So since 1992, we are already talking as the world about CO2 emissions and what to do about it. Mm-hmm. And the attention for CO2 comes and goes. This is just a matter of life at the moment. We see a little bit on the right of this chart, before it becomes a dotted line, we see the 2025 omnibus legislation. This is to do with the CSRD legislation. Mm-hmm. Once the CSRD was a legislation or directive, actually, not a legislation, it was a directive that said that a lot of companies needed to adhere to. So you need to really dive into your supply chain. You need to report and reduce your CO2. And then a group of smart people came along and they said, look, guys, whatever this CSRD directive is gonna put everything on hold because people are not able to give you this kind of data, and the accountants are also not able to see it and to understand this part of the reporting. I'm talking about the end of the year reporting for a lot of companies.
Yeah.
And therefore, the omnibus package came, and the attention for CO2 just dropped like mad, and that's unfortunate. But another thing is, for me, I'm really happy to see, first of all, of course, in your previous slide, that CEOs are talking still a lot about sustainability, about CO2 emissions. In Europe, we are making a lot of good steps towards having a more sustainable world for each other. So the omnibus package is now clear. So I will come to that a little bit later on, but the thresholds are clear now. Mm-hmm. And what else is coming? So this 2022/362 directive is a weird one to mention here, but it's all about tolling in Europe. Yeah. In Holland, we also will charge tolling, and every tolling scheme in every single country in Europe has a part of CO2 in it. So the less clean your truck will be, the more tolling cost you will pay. So it will drive everybody towards a more sustainable way of transporting.
Yeah. And I have a lot of conversations with supply chain executives in the Netherlands, but also in Europe and beyond. So look at CSRD. So first of all, it was mainly directed to publicly traded companies from a certain size, say Ahold or Albert Heijn, the retailer. But they go to their suppliers, say Mars, and mm-hmm. Mars is a private company, so not publicly traded. But then, because of CSRD, they ask for their main suppliers, the tier ones, the OEMs, come up with figures. Yep. So this Mars company will go to the local carrier and ask for this data because Ahold needs it for the CSRD reporting. So that's
it triples down, and that's true. That's what the CSRD actually wants.
Yep.
And how it should work. Yep. And in logistics, and later on we will come to that, there is a legislation in the making called Count Emissions EU, which actually says that you are not able to force small, medium enterprises to calculate with primary data. So in that sense, the CSRD has also let go of the hard line to calculate with primary data because it's just too much and too complicated.
Yeah. So maybe you can you talked about omnibus and count emission. Maybe you can explain a bit further what's going on and what's going to happen.
Yeah, so last year, the 13th of November, the omnibus package 1 was accepted, which means now that now this still says or 1,000. Sorry, this is not correct. My apologies for it. So it's now the threshold of employees. So 1,000 people or employees. If you have 1,000 employees, you are CSRD bound, and or you have 450 million euros turnover. Then you are CSRD bound for the wave 2, and the wave 3 are all listed companies, but that's still a year longer. So every company that has more than 1,000 employees and more than 450 million euros revenue needs to report in 2027 over 2026. This is what's coming. This is already true. This is the reality. And the CSDDD, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, is stretched even further. Only when you have got more than 5,000 employees and 1.5 billion euros of turnover, you are bound by the CS Due Diligence Directive. So a lot of companies are not bound by this anymore, which is a good thing. And second, the County Emissions EU, I just spoke about it as well. On the 5th of November last year, it was provisionally agreed, and it's going to become the new law that everybody who wants to say something about CO2 in logistics needs to adhere to this county emissions legislation. And it's based on the ISO 14083. Everybody already uses it in logistics. Well, at least I hope everybody should. And it says, yes, we prioritize primary data over estimates, but it's voluntary. We are not able to force, and that's the last point in this slide, the SMEs are protected. Subcontractors cannot be forced to provide with primary data. So to every cargo owner, to avoid the word shipper, Martijn, every cargo owner needs to be able to calculate for themselves their CO2 of their supply chain. And this is where we help.
And basically, the County Emission EU is regulated to prevent greenwashing. So you talk about CO2 emissions and you don't have all this kind of data.
Yeah, it's a yes and a no in that one. It's actually made to have one common way of calculating, because at the moment the ISO statement is not obligatory. Everybody can use it or not use it. But if you say that you are using it, you must of course adhere to it. But when it's set in a legislation, people must adhere to it, and this is really nice. The voluntary part of it is that you are not able to be obligated as a haulier to provide CO2 numbers, but commercially they are able to obligate you. But the County Emission says, look, you're not able to obligate companies to provide. So if they don't want to, they don't have to. It's not, and therefore it's voluntary.
Okay. We talk about scope 3, but maybe to set it all straight. Please explain scope 1, 2, and 3 so everybody knows what we are talking about.
Yeah, this slide is really well known to everybody who is already involved with ESG and greenhouse gas protocol. But I think the audience that are listening in today are not as well known with this topic as we are. So therefore, please allow me to explain a little bit the difference between scope 1, 2, and 3. Scope 1 is everything that you are expelling with your own assets, so to speak. So if you are a producing company, your production line. If you are a haulier, your trucks. Okay. Your scope 2 is the energy that you need to buy to put the lights on in your offices. And then we've got 2 times scope 3 in this slide. You see the upstream activity scope 3 and the downstream activities in scope 3. And in this scope 3, everybody says that around 80% of every company's CO2 emissions come from scope 3. And scope 3 is everything that is moving for you as a company because you are in business, but you don't have any influence on. So in transport, it's the upstream, so the raw material, and the downstream, the finished goods towards your customer. That's actually what you need to report on. So everybody needs to understand that if you are a cargo owner, it's either your haulier is your scope 3, and for your haulier, his CO2 emissions are scope 1. Okay, this is what I wanted to make clear in this slide.
Yeah, and some companies like Philips and Unilever, they have the end-to-end supply chain on a product group level, and they mark down. So where is their scope 3? Is it upstream or downstream? And depends in which world you are. In the CPG world, there's a lot of scope 3 downstream,
Yeah.
even to the extent, of the use of products, etc. Whereas if you are more in the manufacturing whole world and the heavy industry, it's more upstream, etc. So basically, it's also depending in which industry you are and where you are in the whole supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. And later on in some slides, I wanted to explain a little bit further on understanding where do you are, because if you're sustainability manager, which probably the viewers of this webinar have, your sustainability manager comes to you as a logistics manager or supply chain manager, and they say, okay, I need your CO2 emissions. And what the question is actually, what part of this? So did your sustainability manager make a proper double materiality analysis, a DMA as they call it, and did there from that analysis, what came out of that analysis, and how well do you want to measure it?
Yeah, and maybe this slide will explain it further. You have different kind of categories.
Correct.
And
yeah, in your scope 3, you've got 15 separate categories, and everything is well documented, if you will, even all the way up to your waste, the business travel, employee commute. It's all in there. And for the supply chain managers listening in today, we need to understand that there are just 2 points that are really important for us as supply chain managers to calculate, which is category 4, thank you, Martijn, and category 9, which are 4 the upstream and 9 is the downstream. Yeah. This is the important part of everybody to understand that where are we in the sustainability realm, and why does the sustainability manager come to us to ask the question about CO2 emissions? What happened?
In a practical term, if you are a chemicals producer, maybe logistics might not be such a huge part of your CO2 emissions. Whereas if you are a wholesaler and you don't produce anything, or a retailer, it's different.
No, exactly. Yeah, thank you, Martijn. This is, I almost forgot to mention that. Yes, this is the important part to understand for everybody. If you are a trader and you're not a manufacturer, by default, your CO2 impact is the biggest that comes from the logistics and the product itself, but let's focus on the logistics.
Yeah.
This is where you can tweak it. This is where you can measure. This is where you can take the advantage also with regards to your competition. If you are a manufacturer of this chemical goods, then of course your production process has a lot more CO2 emissions, and there is your attention going to. Yeah, so it's all about focusing on what kind of parts of my total company am I going to focus on, and what can I do to reduce the CO2 emissions.
But even if you are a manufacturing company, look like Interface, and Interface make tiles for in offices, for flooring, and they are already CO2 neutral internally. So if they are already CO2 neutral internally because of they have their scope 1 emissions under control, then the next part is outside, logistics, and then again.
Yeah, super example. Yeah, we know them quite well, and yes, you are right. So they are already CO2 neutral, and therefore the next step is checking the logistics of their production. Yeah, totally true.
Can you explain a bit more about carbon accounting?
Yes, it's important for logistics managers to understand, and supply chain managers to understand, that your sustainability manager has the choice on how to report. You see here 3 points, but there are actually 2 points. The third one is the golden standard that you want, but let me just focus on point 1 and point 2. Point 1 is spend-based. So they can choose to report the CO2 on every euro that the company has spent on logistics, for example. And they will ask the first question, how much CO2 did we emit in 2025? And how many euros did we spend? And then they will say, okay, so for every euro that we spend, 20 grams of CO2 we emit. But that's a super big average. And it's also not fair, because It says something, but it goes either way, unlikely high or unlikely low, because maybe you're doing less turnover, but your trucks are still running the same. So you're still exhausting the same. Or you're increasing a lot, but you are making much more efficient routes. And therefore, every euro that you spend on transport is not related to the CO2 emissions on that side. So it is a possibility to report, and it's accepted by the Greenhouse Gas Protocol and CSRD as well, to report spend-based. Okay, we can already establish that. But it's of course far better to calculate as point two activity-based. So you need to know the distance, you need to know what has happened from the bottom up, by the way. What did the transporter do, and what kind of fuel did he use? And then you are able to really report, calculate, and allocate the right emissions towards your product, but towards your shipments as well. And therefore, there is a third one, which is supplier specific, that you go to your supplier, to your haulier in this case, and to ask them, could you please give me the CO2 per shipment? Yep. And therefore, a lot of hauliers use our platform already and can send the data through our system to the cargo owner.
Okay. That's clear. And let's dig in. So talk about ISO.
Yeah. Pardon. Yeah, the ISO statement. The ISO 11483 helps the industry forward. Pardon me. In order to calculate and allocate the CO2 emissions in the logistics industry, in the supply chain, I need to say, that's the better word. Because without this ISO norm, everybody will just do something. And we've got a lot of examples in construction, for example, and that it's really unclear how to calculate CO2 emissions. And we are so lucky in the logistics industry that we've got this ISO norm, the 14083, that helps us. And in the next slide, I will want to explain you guys how does this come together. So the ISO statement talks about transport chain elements, and in the industry we talk about transport legs. It's the same. Yep. So what you want to know and what the ISO statement says, you need to calculate from the bottom up. So you need to understand what journey has this article done. So if a shipment, for example, you import goods from China, from a factory in China, it goes first on the road to the harbor in China, then it goes on the ship to the Rotterdam harbor, for example, or to Hamburg or to Antwerp, and then it's offloaded off the ship again, and then again on a truck or a train to go to the customer at the end of the day, or to your warehouse or whatever. So these are already three legs that you need to calculate separately, but it's one shipment. And this is what the ISO statement says. You need to understand what did the shipment do. And then secondly, you need to use credible factors. And credible factors is a super important thing. You are not able to say, well, this truck drives 1 liter and 20 kilometers. It's just not believable. So you need to use credible factors, and you also need to report in a certain format. You always need to mention client name, the well to tank, the tank to wheel, and then the well to wheel eventually. And also you need to have an ISO statement in it. These three major points, and of course the ISO statement is a little bit thicker than just 3 points, are embedded in our system and helps the shipper, the cargo owner, my apologies, Martijn, the cargo owner calculate accurately the CO2 emissions that are emitted by their shipments.
Maybe just to dig deeper on the credible factors, what are these?
Good question. There are actually 2 credible factors in the ISO statement. It's either primary data or secondary data. And there is also a third one in between, which is called the model data. So primary data, everybody understands that, I think, is that you go to your haulier and said, okay, so you have shipped 2 pallets from me from Amsterdam to Paris. I want to understand perfectly what you have done. And I also want to know what you have used. So I want to know your mileage. I want to know your consumption of fuel. and then I can calculate it. That's super complicated. But you can also say, I know averages of my haulier, which we called modeled data, priority number 2. Modeled data allows you to calculate with a carbon performance index, for example. And that's a number which is called a CO2 per ton kilometer. If you know the CO2 per ton kilometer, you are already able to calculate quite closely to the truth of your specific haulier that has done this transport for you multiple times, probably. And if you are not able to get that data from your haulier, because it's just one average number that you ask to your haulier, you can rely on default values. And there are a lot of frameworks in Europe at the moment. I think, I'm not exaggerating, but there are about 30 frameworks. The most commonly used is the GLEC framework. It's from the Smart Freight Center. I almost forgot the word. The Smart Freight Center has created this together with a lot of smart people. And what does it say? And what does this do? It has intensity factors for every kind of way of shipping. So, for example, there is a difference between a full truckload and a distribution load. The framework allows us to calculate quite accurately industry standards for those two boldly different kinds of haulage. Because an FTL, a full truckload, goes directly from A to B. But a distribution goes probably from your warehouse to a distribution point to maybe another distribution point and then to your customer at the end of the day. So there are a lot of things in between. The GLEC framework takes all these matters into account, also empty running, and it helps us calculate quite closely to the industry truth, not haulier truth, by the way, but industry truth, in order to report something about CO2. And at the end of the day, it's all about understanding what your CO2 is and then improving that over time.
If you look at your environment of BigMile, you're using GLEC framework, but also do you use specific data, the primary data in your environment?
Yes, 100%. We allow cargo owners to, via a carrier portal, for example, to retrieve primary data from their hauliers. But we also allow companies to calculate with CPI numbers. So the system that we have is quite flexible, if you will. That if you don't know anything, you can use the GLEC framework. If you just know a little bit, you can use model data. And if you have a really good relationship with your haulier, or your haulier is already using BigMile, one of your hauliers probably, you can ask them to share the data of only your specific shipments with you via the system.
And I think it's also depending on the maturity where you are and where your hauliers are in this whole journey, I would say, because
100%.
It's about improvement. So the further you are in this roadmap, in this journey, it's more probable that you go to primary data, because then you know where to improve.
Yeah, a good example. This morning I was with a potential customer in a meeting, and they said, "Oh my God, Oliver, I don't know where to start." I said, "Don't worry about it, because you just need to start somewhere. Don't worry too much about all the oh, that's a difficult word. Specificalities. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And don't worry too much about it. We will come there, but give yourself time to understand first your supply chain, and then go further into detail with your hauliers and with your suppliers of retrieving the primary data. Don't start with primary data. By all means, don't do it."
No. And maybe when you look at this example, how do you allocate these emissions? Maybe this is a good example to explain it.
Yeah, the ISO norm helps us a lot in this. So like I just mentioned, calculating a full truckload from A to B, we understand quite clearly. It's so many weight. That's the weight, that's the distance. On average, a truck drives one at 2.3 or 2.4, and therefore the CO2 emissions for this shipment is X. But what if you've got a distribution route? What if you've got just one pallet shipped from here to Paris? How are you going to calculate that? And the ISO norm helps us calculate uniformly, standardized. Everybody needs to do it the same way. That's the most important part of the ISO norm. Everybody needs to do it the same way. And how does it work? Let me that's what this sheet wants to show. So you need to let your haulier calculate the full route that he has driven. So uit en thuis, so from home back to home. And then we need to understand, okay, what was the mileage as the crow flies to the delivery or collection points?
Yep.
Therefore, you get a weighted factor per delivery point or loading point to allocate the CO2 of this total route that the truck has done for you.
Yeah.
So this is how it works.
So you see the share. So the first leg is 25%, second one is 25%, and the last one is 50%.
50%, yeah.
Yeah, right. And if you have, say, a container, an air container shipped by plane, how do you, you have the first leg, this will be transported to somewhere in the Netherlands to Schiphol, and then it ships to the US. How does it work with those kind of transport, with also air cargo and some first a small leg of transportation by road?
Super interesting question. Of course, the ISO says you need to calculate from the bottom up. So you need to hear from your hauliers what they have done. But the reality of the world is, of course, that we as cargo owners do not always know what the haulier has done with my cargo.
Yep.
And we don't want to know as well, because maybe he combined it with something and therefore my rate is better, but you don't want to understand it. And it as a matter of fact, it's also too much information. So who cares? The thing is, the ISO and the world of CO2 allows us to calculate with the best way possible with the information that we have. So if we don't have information, we simply don't have the information. We can do our best efforts to get the information, but you are allowed, for example, to calculate CO2 emissions for a shipment all the way to Atlanta, and you know that it's done by air, but you don't know if the land lane for the land leg is done by a truck or a van, or what, you don't know if it's gone to Liège, or you don't know if it went to Paris. You just assume, and that's okay for the first reporting tools, you just assume that the plane took off from your premises, and you assume that the plane landed in the premises of your customer.
And basically, the air cargo has the highest percentage of the whole transport of this exactly. Container.
Yeah.
So
So you need to calculate. Yeah, you need to allocate. You need to calculate with, of course, the best way possible. But what comes closest to the reality, and it allows you to omit data that you don't have, but you need to make it a real good statement in your ISO statement. That's what it's all about. And our business consultants help you build your ISO statement.
So there's a question from the audience. Does the solution also have an interface to ERP? You will answer that, but maybe you can also talk about data gaps.
Yeah, well, we just hit it a little bit, the data gaps. What we just show is omitting data allowed by the ISO statement? In principle, no. But the ISO norm also understands that you are not able to know everything, especially when we talk about mass distribution systems. And mass distribution systems are the parcel carriers of this world, the DHL, the FedExes, the UPSs of this world. Those companies have massive distribution chains. You are not able to follow in detail, unless it's scanned everywhere with address details, but okay, you're not able to follow in detail to which hub it went, to which airport it went, and then with which plane did it go, because you've got belly cargo, but you've got also cargo airplanes. So, that's really complicated to get the right data. And again, I don't want to overwhelm everybody, but the best way is to know it. But the ISO also allows you to omit data under specific criteria. So it says here also, and I hate to read it out loud, but it says here, if a certain activity is less than a certain percentage of the total transport activity, come on guys, don't worry about it too much, just leave it out.
Yeah.
And again, the airplane example is a good example to talk about, indeed. And at the end of the day, transparency is important. So you need to mention it in your report.
And getting back to the question, so yeah, I know you have a ERP integration with some of the systems, but what is the relation with ERP, and where do you get the integrations, where do you get the data from, and where do you write it to?
So, as a matter of fact, we have a lot of connections with ERP systems, but it's never enough. Okay, that's the honest truth. Now, what kind of system is it? What do you want to calculate? But in principle, what we only need from your ERP system is order information. From where, to where, and how much was the weight. If we know that, we can also establish business rules with each other to say, okay, so everything that goes in Europe is by road, everything that goes to Australia is by air, everything that goes to, to America is also by air. You can apply business rules to your data set in order to complete, to have a better CO2 calculation and allocation. So what kind of interface do we have? We've got a lot. The API endpoints are ready, so you don't have to worry about it. The only thing is that we need to set up the business rules if your system doesn't give us the right information.
That's about internal data applications. Maybe it's also good to talk about external data sharing.
Yeah, definitely. So what we just talked about is about gathering as much data as you want or need. So from your hauliers, our platform allows carriers to calculate and allocate the CO2 to your shipments. But of course, as you just saw, he needs to also calculate and tell the system of, well, probably other customers what he has done in his truck, but he doesn't want to show you that. So therefore, the system allows for a carrier to calculate the total CO2 that he emitted, and then click on the button, only that shipment and this shipment and only the shipments of the cargo owner is then shared via the system to the cargo owner.
Yeah.
And the system, again, is quite flexible. So he can also say, no, I don't want to share it via the system. I want to share it in an Excel file. Okay. Or you want to share it in a PDF file. Okay. Everything can be done in the system to every business rule or methodology that is applicable. Yeah.
And maybe, it's all about compliance and that kind of stuff. Maybe you can talk a bit about reporting.
Yeah, reporting is a really important point, of course, of the ISO norm. The norm says you need to be able to make client reports. So first of all, step number one, every report can be customer specific. It can also be automated. So the system allows you to, if you've got 100 customers, to create 100 reports with only the shipments of your customer, and then send it also to your customer. And you can create a report all by yourself, but the report needs to have two basic things, which are number two, the tank to wheel. Yeah, there you go. Sorry, the well to tank, the tank to wheel, and then finally the well to wheel, which is actually the WTT and the TTW combined. One thing that everybody needs to understand that is in logistics, we do not know and we cannot influence the well to tank emissions, but we are able to influence the tank to wheel emissions. Okay, this is the important part of it, and together it makes the well to wheel. And again, the count emissions EU legislation is now working hard, and BigMile is part of the conversations of creating a uniform handbook of intensity factors in order to create one common data set to be used by everybody.
What is kind of intensity factor are you talking about?
For the fuels. So every fuel has intensity factors and has how do you say it? The intensity factor is needed in order to calculate the CO2 of a truck. And
so basically, different kind of fuels have different kind of intensity factors.
Thank you, Martijn. That's it. Because we've got a B7 diesel, for example, which has got 7% biodiesel in it. We've got HVO 100, which got the 100% HVO. These are fuels with all kinds of different characteristics. Yeah, correct word. And therefore, it needs to be a common used bookwork, because it cannot be that it's different, and it is. Unfortunately, the reality is it's different if you fuel with Total or with Shell with another one. But yeah, that goes too much into detail, and this is what I mean also when we talk about with a lot of logistics suppliers and supply chain managers, and I understand this, they tend to go a lot into detail. But Shell has better intensity values than yes, okay, but it's about reporting. And yes, you want to be as close to the truth as possible, but don't make your life as difficult as possible, please. Yeah.
And a third part of the reporting is?
Yeah, that you need to be able to split your reports per modality. So if you have a piece of road, a piece of sea, and also it went through your hub, for example, you need to be able to report it as well. And our system allows customers to do that totally automatic.
Yeah. And this is a very important thing, because your clients, the cargo owners, are asking for this because they want to have a modal shift from road to
Exactly.
to rail, or from air to sea, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so how do you start with all this?
Not as complicated as one might think. So we just need three things. We need to know from where, we need to know to where, and then the system is able to calculate the distance. Then we need to know the transport mode. Did it go by road, sea, or air? And we need to know the weight. So I just mentioned three things, but it's a little bit more. The distance traveled, our clients do not have to mention that to us. Okay. We calculate that for them if they don't know it, right? So either you know it, and therefore you also know what the haulier has done. So you make the planning for the haulier, for example. Then you also know the consumption of the truck. That's the assumption that the framework does.
Yep.
If you don't know it, we just calculate it, and we use two things: either by the greater circle distance, which is actually only used by air freight, or the shortest feasible distance, which is always used in road freight, if you can imagine.
Yep.
Rail is calculated by rail data. So that's the one. Yeah.
And does it really matter? Because if you have a detour or whatever, is that also use impact, or is it enough to use the shortest feasible distance?
It is enough to use the shortest feasible distance because detours are temporarily.
Yeah.
And you want to have uniformity in your reporting. But yes, as a matter of fact, it does impact a lot. And so if there is a road blockage somewhere and the detour is not 2 miles, but 20 miles, for example, that has an impact on your CO2 emissions. And at the end of the day, it is not really stringent today, but I can guarantee you that in the future, these kind of details will matter.
But then you get in a higher maturity phase, and then you
Correct.
want to improve, and then you say, okay,
Correct.
Does the detail matter, etc., to some extent, and then you see it in the figures itself.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we talk a lot about carbon footprinting, and maybe can you explain a bit more how to do that and what's needed?
Yeah. So the platform allows companies to calculate and allocate CO2 emissions. And we also allow companies with our carbon analytics tooling to analyze and report. Okay, that's important. Number two, we have multimodality in our system. So road, sea, air, barge, everything. We are ISO verified, and we are ISAE 3000 and SOC 2 certified, which means that auditors, when they see these two stamps, they will say, okay, I don't have to worry again anymore about the calculations. I just need to check if the input file is in correlation with the file that the cargo owner has. It cuts a lot of auditing time, and we all know that auditors are quite expensive and want to take their time. But if they see these two certifications, they are already really happy and say, okay, we don't need to do it anymore. And we are all about end-to-end supply chain. And since recently, we also offer field service providers the CO2 emissions. So the little vans with the mechanics in the vans that goes to, for example, a small job somewhere in the field. Yeah. That's also the calculations that we do. So it's not only bound by logistics anymore. We also do field service indeed. Yeah.
All right. A whole range of all kind of road transportation vans and trucks. But it's good to mention that, how to sell it to your CFO, because, it's all coming this, and for supply chain managers to have some grasp on this sustainability in scope 3. It's also good to mention that, for your accountants, it's better to have this kind of data up front. Exactly. So basically, there's also another argument internally to your CFO or CEO to have this kind of application internally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and your CFO also wants to have it because probably the CO2s will be a part of their reporting. Yeah. And I speak to a lot of CFOs lately, and they all say, I want to have it in my Power BI tooling because I want to see it, because it's not only a logistics figure, it's a real accounting figure nowadays.
Yeah, and we started out with the turmoil in the world, the energy prices. Diesel is more expensive than gasoline now, so that will be back in your reporting in the end. And exactly. Then in the end, at the end of this quarter, you will get a better insight what kind of impact it had on your business overall.
Exactly. Yes, 100%.
And maybe beyond that, so maybe you can talk about supply chain risks in a broader sense.
Yeah, companies that use the BigMile platform usually understand and identify their weak spots in the supply chain quite easily. To talk about an open door, but when you have one source, one supplier, and it's in China, and you always need to ship your cargo through the Suez Canal, you understand that that's a weak point. But what else it does, it also allows you to see where are my CO2 hotspots. And does it come from China, or does it come from delivery? Does it come from my business to consumer deliveries? Yeah. It's all about analyzing your supply chain and understanding where your CO2 hotspots are and acting on it. And it allows you therefore to see financial risks. But one of the most important ones is that it will help you build reports. So it will help you build your reputation, and it avoids compliance risk, because at the end of the day, the CSRD legislation is coming in 2027. A lot of companies need to report. Otherwise, you are going to be asked to report for it for your customer at the end of the day. So it's a really strategic decision to start with your CO2 calculations today instead of tomorrow.
So, like I mentioned, I'm the architect of the SCM IT Supermap Europe, and I also have a subline called Supply Chain Risk Management. You have pre-wave on it, and you have risk methods on it, being bought by Sphera and the others. They do other things. They track down what's happening in the world, and is something happening in your tier 2, etc., in Malaysia, and that's impacting your business at the end. That's a different approach of supply chain risk management.
I agree.
But overall, what I see, and I do agree that you give insights of your whole entire supply chain. Where is my carbon footprint upstream, downstream, internally, etc. So all in all, both kind of software types will give you more insight. Where are my risks? Where are my hotspots and weak spots?
Yes, exactly. That's what we do.
Yeah. Maybe to wrap up, so we getting close to the end of the webinar. Maybe you can talk about your certificates.
Yeah, we touched base already a little bit during the conversation. So we are ISO 14083 verified, and mind you, it is not a certification program. It is not a ISO 9001 like some companies try to sell it. It's not a certification program. We are GLEC accredited, which is of course really good. Not one of the first. We are the first in the Netherlands to be GLEC accredited. We've got an ISO 3000 certificate and a SOC 2 certificate. It's all about accounting, and the platform runs on Microsoft Azure. All data is in Europe, so we keep all the data in Europe. That's in the contract with our sub-processors, but also with Microsoft Azure, of course.
Yeah, and I know I have a lot of bigger companies who also talk to Microsoft directly. Also a company in Switzerland who have Microsoft Azure, and they have a contained environment.
Yeah.
No data gets out of Switzerland in that sense, and that's what Microsoft is assuring, and I do believe them. And maybe about your customers, you talked about a different kind of maybe you can talk about what kind of customers on the cargo owners you have.
Yeah, we've got a wide variety of customers. I hope that people understand or see and realize, there are chemical, Bostik chemicals, Kosun is food industry, the sugars, they're really well known for sugars. Delta Trek is one of our new partners. They are actually quite big in the fruit and vegetables shipping. Retail is sorry, I don't know really what retail does. Martijn, can you help?
No, sorry.
Well, but anyway, so AB InBev, so a wide variety of cargo owners, to not say shippers, that are a customer of our system. But we also got logistics service providers, a lot of them as a customer. This is just a part of the customers. So we've got more than 250 customers at the moment, but DHL supply chain. DHL is a big corporation. They've got their own CO2 emissions also, but there is a part of DHL that is not happy with that calculation method, so they use us. Logical, Seva, Rhenus, Vanguard in America. We've got we are proud to be serving the bigger logistics service providers as well. And then last but not least, we also got some integrations with ERP systems or TMS providers, like we got a question. This is just a few. These are mostly TMS systems, by the way, or TMS providers. But yeah, we are integrated with them. And the integration can go from a simple integration that says, okay, we've just got a button on our platform that sends data to the BigMile platform, all the way to the emission API that is communicating with the platform of our customer in milliseconds, in split seconds, and the ERP supplier will use that figure of CO2 wherever he wants, either on an invoice or a CMR or in a customer portal or a reporting tool. We don't have influence on that, but we are then the calculation partner for them.
All right. So maybe there might be some questions from the audience. If not, I have a few questions to wrap up. So where to start? You mentioned it, but what is the business model? So do you buy a license per user, or what is your business kind of model?
No, it's a subscription license. So you subscribe for a year. So it's a per year license. We do have users in the licenses, and you can grow with those users as you wish. But we always tend to advise to our customers to not allow too many users on the platform, because at the end of the day, everybody just wants to have this report, and you want to manage the system correctly. So uploading files, and that's for one person, and then seeing the reporting and seeing the calculation or the analytics tool side of it is a different kind of user. So there are the different users that we allow on the platform.
And as a rule of thumb, if you are a mid-sized company, how much does it cost on a yearly basis? Should I sell it to my CFO? What kind of amount of money do I need for my CFO to get started?
For BigMile, it all depends on how many data you want to push through the system. It goes from not even 5,000 euros per year to maximum 20,000 euros per year. So this is the range that you need to be thinking of.
Okay, but so my simple calculation, if you have an accountant, that's very expensive. So if you can save a few hours of an accountant, there's an easy payback for this kind of system.
100%. The return on investment is quite quickly made. It's not only the accountant that is paying back, but also the peace of mind that you have that your calculations are correct. And secondly, you do not have to struggle with your own made calculation sheet or Excel sheets that are quite quickly damaged and not working properly anymore, and then you need to find which formula is not working well. So yeah, it's the hours that people put in sometimes in calculating their own CO2 is quite heavy, and also sometimes not correctly and conform, and that's the main issue in my opinion, that you try to calculate something, but yeah, you're actually calculating wrong.
Okay. All right. So we are out of time, but there's more to read. So you can download through this link the ESG IT Supermap I have created already twice. There's also a blog about interesting developments in the EU, and there's also a link to, for example, how Rico Europe is using BigMile. So there's more to it, and when you download the PDF, you get access to these links. If you know more, Oliver and myself will be available in the next 30 minutes in our virtual lounge. So I'm happy to talk further with people who want to know more. With this, to the audience, either live or in the recording, thank you for watching. I hope you get some interesting insight out of it. And I do think this is very important, and this is very practical to become more sustainable and to save the planet in the end. And this will contribute to this. So thank you for watching. And Oliver, thank you for your explanation. It taught me quite a few new things, I would say. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and you're most welcome. I hope that the audience also learned something, and if they've got any questions, just reach out.
Yeah, and we will make sure that you will be in touch with BigMile. For now, thank you for now, and there will be another webinar next week. We'll talk about transport management systems. So we will talk about end-to-end transport management systems with 3 vendors, and we have also TMS Demo Day coming up in the Netherlands in Schiphol. But thanks for now, and bye-bye.